Hello and welcome to the first midweek episode this week, where we'll be talking about the Eastern Canadian NHL teams. So I'll be starting off with the Ottawa Senators. Celso will move on to Montreal Canadiens, and I will finish off with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So looking at the Senators finished last year in the Canadian division. And they're probably the only team in Canada right now in a full-on rebuild, actually. They have a really, really young core, actually a good young core. In my opinion, their best player right now is Tim Stützle, who happens to be a young German kid. So him and Leon are actually pretty tight, apparently, since he's come into the league, so that's pretty cool to see. But they have a really good young core, but they actually also have the biggest question mark at the moment. And that question mark goes by the name of Brady Tkachuk. So we talked about him in the podcast this week. He still needs to sign a contract. With Brady Tkachuk in the fold, this top six, quite good. Young, inexperienced, but quite good.
And with Tkachuk's physical play, it'll definitely help. With
yeah,
and he's really good too, so it'll protect his younger players. So his fellow players, and then he'll be able to score and all that.
So, looking at these guys, though, this team, they have a really solid young core. So
they do.
Brady Tkachuk, very solid player. Josh Norris, who's projected to be the number one center, is only 22 years old. Alex Formenton is there. Drake Batherson, both 22 and 23 respectfully. Stützle, aforementioned Stützle, he's only 19. And you have Colin White and Connor Brown, who are 24 and 27 respectively. That's your top six. If you're old, your grandpa in the group is 27 years old. I think they're a good young team, and a lot of them were drafted. So 4 of the 6 were drafted by the Ottawa Senators. So you're gonna have a good young core when you've been bad for so long, right? But anywho. And then their bottom 6, it's decent, like Nick Paul, Shane Pinto, Austin Watson. They just traded for Zach Sanford out of the Blues, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
They gave up Logan Brown in a second, so they gave up a good amount. Logan Brown's a decent prospect, but a second pick is a pretty big deal. And Zach Sanford's right now projected to be a fourth-line winger. He's more of a gritty player, if I'm not mistaken, too, so doesn't put up necessarily a lot of points, but he's a physical kind of player that I think that's the Ottawa's tendency going towards right now. And then Chris Tierney, and then they have this guy by the name of Andrew Agozzino that they signed to a PTO, if I'm not mistaken, or a two-way contract, one of the two. He's projected to slide in there right now, but that's also with the exclusion of Brady Tkachuk, who's not yet signed a contract. So with Brady Tkachuk, this will be a much better team than without Brady Tkachuk. And then their defense, man, is actually quite decent. They're projected right now, number 7 and 8 defense is Michael Del Zotto, who's a bottom pairing defense, have been going around the league for quite a few years. And then Victor Mete, who played top 4 minutes at some point in Montreal in the last couple of years when he was with them. So I think it'll be this will be a decent team. They're still in the they're just finishing the rebuild phase and getting into the experience, gaining experience and possible contention phase, but they're nowhere near the best 4 teams in that division right now.
Oh,
so it's going to be a good learning experience for them.
Another question mark for Ottawa, I think, is their goaltending.
100%. Yeah, I was literally just about to touch base on that too. They have Anton Forsberg and Matt Murray as their 2 goalies. So we talked about it a while back. If Matt Murray plays how he played with the Pittsburgh Penguins in their cup runs, then this is going to be a good team.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I agree.
If he plays how he's played the last few years, then this is not going to be a very good team. And Anton Forsberg is not good enough to play number 1 goalie in this league. Now, something they have going for them is they have a legit number 1 defenseman in Thomas Chabot. I genuinely feel he is one of the better defensemen he will become one of the best defensemen in the NHL. Right now, I don't think he is. I think he's maybe in the top 20 is what I would put him in right now. But he still has a lot to learn, a lot to grow. He's only 24, and he's only going to get better from here. They got Nikita Zaitsev, who's projected to play with him. that top pairing, which will give him like nice experience with him. Eric Brandstrom, I believe, was the biggest piece part of that Karlsson trade, and he's projected to be their second line lefty right now. Artem Zub played quite well as well last year. And then they have Nick Holden, Josh Brown, Victor Mete, Del Zotto to round it out. So I do see this being a good team, man. I do see them playing decent. It's really, for me, just going to depend on just how they manage their young guys, man. And then just they're going to be on bad runs this year, and they somehow need to get out of it, and it's just about that leadership in that team. Like, of all those guys, there is no bona fide leader in that team. Like, nobody's ever been a captain on that team, right? So I think that will be their biggest challenge, just finding the leadership within them. And then they'd go from there, obviously. But I do think that's going to be their biggest challenge this year, just the inexperience of the team. And then, because in their forward group, they have one single player above the age of 27. Everybody else is under 27. Like, that's absolutely insane. And then their defense is, 24, 29, 22, 25, 23. 31. And then 2 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. But anywho, Ottawa, we projected them to finish 6th. I put them above. I mean, Buffalo, literally, you put the minor, like a midget AAA team in Edmonton, and they'll be Buffalo. Like, that is an absolute disgrace of an organization right now. Like, we're not even going to talk about the recent post by Robin Leonard just ridiculing the Buffalo medical team for just how terrible they are. And then the Eichel situation right now, anyways. And then Detroit, I still don't think Detroit's a good enough team right now. They'll get there, but I think Detroit and Ottawa will battle for 6-7 this year.
Yeah, I was going to say they definitely improved in the offseason, but
yeah, so
might be a different story during the regular
season. I we'll see how it goes. Like, again, any team that gets injured has a lot of injuries. It'll be tough. Like, these guys, the Ottawa Senators don't have enough depth in their organization to call up and bring down players. I mean, they signed Tyler Ennis to a PTU. I can see him making the team as like the 13th forward and playing along anywhere they need him there, just because he's a good veteran kind of guy. But apart from Ennis, man, I don't see it. I don't see where they're going to get any leadership from. So they're just going to really have to develop from within. It's going to really be on the coaches to really make sure that this team is united and getting in the right direction. But this is a team that has a lot of very promising things going for them, in my opinion. So
yeah, their future is bright, but like in this like really, really strong Atlantic division, it's gonna be tough to try to make the playoffs consistently if they are improving these next couple of years.
100%. And they're developing a team that ideally will get to that point. And I think they can, and I think they will. But I don't see them making the playoffs for another at least 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, but they'll be challenging. Next year, I project them to be in the playoff fight with 5 games left in the season. So
I could probably see that, but
5
in 2
to 10
years.
points in the playoffs.
I can see that, but in 2 years.
So not at the end of this year. I'm saying next year.
No, I'm saying okay. Then I'm saying not next year, but the year after.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I'm excited to see how we go. So, they didn't really have too busy of an offseason, really, man. Like, just that one trade for Zach Sanford, and then like a couple signings, but like nothing really. Like, Scott Sabrin signed in August, and nothing huge by these guys. Like, they traded Evgeny Dadonov for Nick Holden. Really, they only had like 2 to 3 moves, but I honestly feel that these guys, they draft pretty well. They build through the draft, and then they go from there. So it makes sense. It makes sense because I don't see them like going all in quite yet because they're not at that point quite yet. But soon. Again, 3 years. This is a playoff team. So, so also you're gonna go touch base on the Montreal Canadiens now, okay?
Yes. So the Montreal Canadiens, we said they would probably finish at around like 4th, I believe, 4th, 5th.
Yeah, I think I personally said 4th. Yeah.
Yeah. They did add lots of pretty well-rounded players in Dvorak and Hoffman, and then a pretty good defenseman in David Savard, and then Chris Weidman just to like bolster up the depth of their defense. They also added Cedric Paquette and Matthew Perreault, so some decent signings this offseason. They did lose a really huge part of their offense last year in Philip Deneau. That's a big piece that they lost. And then just good core forwards in Eric Stahl, Corey Perry. They're still pretty good, pretty decent players, but they unfortunately don't have them anymore. Thomas Tatar left. Jesperi Kotkaniemi left with
that incredible offer sheet.
Yeah,
what an absolutely $20 signing bonus. Like Carolina's like, oh, we signed him for the player. Nah, dude. No. Like that is the most incredible revenge offer sheet I've seen in my life. That was a
pretty fun story. Like,
so funny
for that week. Yeah, no, just
so funny.
And they're like, screw it, we'll just take the picks, give it to Arizona, and pick up Christian Dvorak. Like, why not?
I do actually think it's a bit of an upgrade.
I think so too.
Dvorak's older, and I think Kotkaniemi has more of a future.
I was gonna say like Dvorak is like a somewhat developed Kotkaniemi. So
yeah.
So they upgraded in that way, but
I do think Kotkaniemi has more of upside than Dvorak.
Yeah.
In a couple years.
In a couple years, yeah. But for now, like it's an upgrade. So yeah, defense also took a hit with Weber being injured and probably gone for the rest of the season. Maybe that'll be it for his career kind of thing. So Petrie's just going to have to, unfortunately, put on his big boy shoes or skates, I guess, and on the ice, and carry this defense because without Weber, it's kind of tough for Montreal.
It's not just his physical ability as a hockey player; it's his leadership as well that they're going to miss. Like, I'm sure you'll touch base on him later too, but like I think the two toughest things for the Canadiens, their biggest losses this year, are not due to trades or free agency; it's due to injuries.
Because like I think Price is going to be out for a couple.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Price will be out for a while too. Yep.
Yeah, so like Allen is still a pretty decent goalie. Like he's definitely a good backup for Price, but now he's going to have to be the starter for a while. So again, same with Petrie. Allen is just going to have to play well and just try to keep Montreal in the playoff picture this year. Because who's their backup or who's their
isn't it Caden Primo?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. He's still not a bad goalie, though.
No, but like
it's not Price though.
Not Price and Allen. It's Allen and Primo now. So
yeah, so
it's gonna be tough. But with their like young forward group, especially with like Suzuki and Caulfield, I could see them improving their offense. Like I can see Suzuki and Caulfield like stepping up big time, especially Caulfield. With the addition of Dvorak, I can see like their top six is definitely improved. Quite a bit.
I completely agree. Their offense in the top four is vastly better.
Yeah. And then just like rounding out the team with like Paquette and Perreault, good depth players, so definitely
veterans too.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely a well-rounded offensive group. Defense took a hit, especially with Weber, but I can see them kind of like molding together to like play very well defensively, and then just Allen just has to make those saves that he has to save, and just keep playing like he's playing.
I think their biggest, like the Deneau loss, their biggest losses are defensively, because Deneau, Weber, and Price are three massive pieces to that team defense.
Yes.
So I think they improve their offense, and Hoffman is another guy who was injured coming into camp. So he'll be an interesting. He failed his physical, so
we'll see where he slips in. But
yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, they're gonna. Yeah, they had a really tough offseason, but they did the best they could, and I think they did quite well.
I think they did quite well for what they had on the table. So
yeah, good for them, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lastly, we'll touch base on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So or in the podcast episode, we talked about how the Leafs don't really have too many roster battles going on in training camp right now, and I still think that's true. I mean, they had a couple losses. Jumbo Joe didn't return to them. That's a big one. Freddie Anderson left as well.
Yep.
That's a big loss as well. Although Freddie Anderson has missed a lot of time with injuries recently, so I don't know if it's going to be a huge effect anyways. But and then they made a couple smart PTO signings. They got Nikita Gusev, who was playing for the Devils, a pretty solid winger. But not too many big moves. I mean, this is a team that is pressed up against the salary cap. Their signings were Peter Mrazek. That was their big signing. He signed just over $3 million contract, per year. So 3 years, I think. They gave Josh Ho-Sang a PTO.
Yep, they did.
Which that can be a pretty big upside. They signed Andre Kass and Nick Ritchie to contracts, so that's to bolster up the physicality. Nick Ritchie's more a physical kind of guy. Andre Kass is more of a skilled kind of winger. So I'm going to be honest, man. Overall, this team, I think, they did a lot of really smart moves this year, honestly. Pretty impressed with how Kyle Dubas is managing this. Looking at their lineup, so they had their biggest losses this year were Freddie Anderson and Zach Hyman, who went to the Oilers, obviously. So Zach Hyman, I think, is going to be a really big loss for them. As of right now, it's looking like Nick Ritchie is going to go in and replace Hyman on that top line. I don't know how that's going to go. It's going to be an interesting trial and error for sure. And then they have John Tavares coming back from that. Oh, that was such a scary injury, hey? Can you believe some Leafs fans thought that was intentional?
Really?
Yeah. People are like, oh, this is intentional. He needed him. No. That is the most uneducated, stupidest argument I've heard in my entire... I get it. Your captain got injured. And it was scary, man. 100%. It was absolutely terrifying to watch.
Scary to watch. Yeah,
but Corey Perry was crying after he hit that. He hit him. The guy felt so bad. And good on Perry for fighting Foligno right after, and good on Foligno for standing up for your captain. You're in the heat of the battle. You have no idea if it was intentional or not, but there's nobody in that dressing room, nobody in the net, nobody that thinks that was completely intentional. Corey Perry is a dirty player a lot of the times, but that was not something that he meant to do. No way. But I digress. So yeah, and then you have when you have Austin Matthews on your team, that's, in my opinion, he's my pick to win the Rocket Richard this year again. Unbelievably skilled player, man. His shot, he's got the best wrist shot in the league. I don't think there's a question with that right now. Such a lethal wrist shot. And then Mitch Marner's a heck of a player. But again, when you have $33 million tied up on 3 players, that's tough, man. That is so tough. And then we're going to even go $40 million on 4 players. If you include Willie Nylander.
Yeah.
That is unbelievably difficult. Unbelievably difficult to do anything.
Cap space on 4 players.
So their depth is going to be tough. Their depth is going to be hit for sure. I mean, especially with Morgan Riley's contract expiring at the end of this year. That's going to be a tough signing. They do not have a lot of money for this. So, but they have good... So... The Leafs, in my opinion, will finish 2nd or 3rd in the Atlantic. I put them in 3rd behind in front of Florida, behind Tampa Bay and Boston. Yeah, because then we had Tampa, Boston, Toronto, Florida, Montreal, Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo. That's how we had it. Yeah, okay.
That's what we had. Yep.
So, this is a team that's going to make the playoffs.
I guess we'll see if they make it past the first round.
So, and you know what, man, listen, that's been the narrative on this team for how many years? They haven't made it past the first round in over 18 years. They haven't won the Cup since 67, I think. So that's the longest active streak in sports. The Cubs didn't win in a millennium, so. But, anywho, this team should make it in there. Okay? They should. They should make it into the playoffs. And this should be a team that makes it into the second round. Could even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion. But they need that winning pedigree. They have a single player on this team that has won a cup. One, Jake Muzzin. Good second pairing lefty. And they have a good defense core, too. And Morgan Riley, TJ Brody, Jake Muzzin, Justin Hull, Rasmus Sandin is projected to come on in there. and then Travis Dermott. Like, they have a good team, man. Top to bottom, I think this is the deepest team that Canada has.
Or that Toronto has?
No, like, in all the Canadian teams, I think this is the deepest team, top to bottom.
Oh, okay, I get it, yeah.
And that's tough for me to say because I don't like this team. But these guys there has to be something in them that's like a switch. Because right now, there is demons everywhere. Like, today I watched All or Nothing, the Leafs documentary on Amazon Prime. Highly recommend that to anyone who wants to watch. Like, it was absolutely fascinating, the entire thing following him during the lockdown season. The COVID lockout season. Like, so freaking fascinating. And, buddy, those players need to step up. I mean, and you have incredible leadership in that team, right? You have Spezza, who's an unbelievable leader. You have John Tavares, Johnny Toronto is what they call him. Like yeah.
Like in the
documentary, they call him Johnny Toronto.
That's weird.
Yeah, Will Arnett was the voice narrator for it, and he's like, yeah, Johnny Toronto, okay, sweet. But they have great leadership, man. Like, and those two in particular, they lost some leadership when Jumbo left, but like, they got good leadership. Morgan Riley's a good leader. Just Jake Muzzin has that experience, but like, just one person to win a cup, that's tough, man. And similar to the Oilers' problems last year, in my opinion, was the fact that we didn't have any cup winners on the team. Now the Oilers do, but this team, I cannot trust this team to make it anywhere in the playoffs until they win a round. And that is, I will never bet on them to win the cup until they finally win a round. When they win a round, then maybe, buddy, they can go all the way. Really, like, this is a deep, deep team. Like, Austin Matthews becomes a UFA in 3 years. He did not sign a long-term contract. He signed a 3 to 4 year contract. I think it was actually 5 years that he signed. Mm-hmm. He might actually, like, everybody's saying, oh my God, he didn't want to sign because he wants to move to Arizona. And first off, nobody wants to play for the Coyotes right now. This is an absolute disgrace. Two, like, they might even not be in Arizona much longer with how bad they're doing down there, but maybe they're waiting for Austin Matthews to sign down there. Like, this is all obviously hypothetical, right? But this team needs to start winning, man. If they don't start winning, and if they lose in the first round again this year, there has to be some massive moves. Like, massive moves.
Kind of hard with those big contracts.
But you're going to move one of them. I think the only untouchable on that team is Austin Matthews.
Yeah. I can see that, yeah.
It sucks because, like, in the documentary, it says that, like, Marner was a massive Leafs fan his whole life, so it would be really sad to see him leave the Leafs.
But if it's better for the team, then
yeah, exactly.
That's
like,
gonna have
if
to happen.
They lose in the first round again this year, there has to be some massive changes, and changes where you bring in cup-winning players, people with championship experience and pedigree. But I think that's the only way these guys can win, and it has to be an impact player. It can't be a fourth liner that's just going to go in like, hey guys, this is how we... Like, no. Nobody cares. It has to be a top 6 forward or a top pairing defense that comes in with championship... Or top 2 pair. A top 4D or a top 6 winger or forward that comes in and gives you that championship pedigree. I would even say starting goalie maybe. So, like, top to bottom, forward and defense is probably the deepest team Canada has to offer. However, goalies, Peter Mrazek and Jack Campbell, okay? Like, Jack Campbell had an unbelievable season last year. He won his first 11 starts, like a broken NHL record. That was pretty cool to watch. But I don't have much confidence in them. And then they have Michael Hutchinson, who's the third stringer there. I don't have much confidence in that. But, I mean, you have that deep of a team in front of you. You just need your goalies to be average, and I think that's what they have. So this team is a good enough team to win the cup, in my opinion. If they had a number 1 goalie, then they'd be probably my pick to win the cup. As sad as it makes me say, they probably would. This is such a deep team, but until they win a round, I can never pick them to win anything, really, which is sad for Leafs fans. But a lot of them are jerks, so I don't really care too much.
That is true, yeah.
Although I have a couple of really good friends of mine that are big Leafs fans, and yeah, they're nice. I respect them, so I feel bad for them.
There are some exceptions.
Yeah, there are some exceptions.
But the majority.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, like Oilers fans are getting like that now, too.
Yes, no, that's true, too.
Their season starts on the 13th, if I'm not mistaken, where they play the Montreal Canadiens. This will be an interesting season for them. Again, work your way to the playoffs, and then you got to win a series.
That first round, and then
they got to win the series.
Set.
There's so many demons there. Like, I'm calling it right now, though. This team will have 2 of Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares will be traded if they don't win a round this year. 2. So, anyways, that's my take on the Leafs for this week. And later on this week, we have a really interesting episode where Celso is going to divulge in the wrestling.
We're going to go to the weird part of sports.
Yeah, the weird part of sports. So,
we're going to talk about wrestling, yes.
Yeah, tune into that episode in a couple of days here. Super excited for this NHL season, and we'll see how our projections do. So we have Toronto 3rd, Montreal 5th, Ottawa 6th. So we'll see how that goes. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of days.